Everybody is talking about this game now.
Talking about Wordle, the online puzzle game that's turned your Twitter timeline into a lame version of Tetris.
I want to play Wordle.
Right now?
Right now? Could you do it?
Let's make Wordle. Wordle is actually a pretty simple game to make. In fact, it is really only two parts, a keyboard and a grid that is just an array of your guesses. You type on the keyboard and enter your guess. The letters will turn green if they are in the correct spot, yellow if they are in the word but in the wrong spot, or gray meaning they aren't in the word at all. You then continue until you get the word right, or until you run out of guesses. Here's the Wordle clone that we are making. The source code is linked below. So this is a web application, which means we are using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. The HTML file is really small. It has a div container that contains one div for the keyboard and one div for the guess grid. Both have IDs so that we can reference them in our JavaScript file. This is also where we link to our style.css file and our app.js file. In the JavaScript file, I have a dictionary of all the keys on the keyboard. This could just be an array with all the keys, but I chose to go with the dictionary so that I can track the state of each key. Below that, I have an array for all the guesses, and an array for the current guess, a variable for the secret word, number of guesses, and 3 strings for the different states a letter can be in. Then, in my Initialize function, I get the grid div using the ID we set in the HTML file, and I loop over the number of guesses to create that many rows, and in each row, loop over the length of the secret word to add divs for each letter. Again, adding an ID to each div containing that row and column so that I can reference it later. For the keyboard, I again get the keyboard div using the ID we set in the HTML file. I added 2 break keys to the dictionary so that the keyboard would wrap after the right letters. And then loop over all the keys in the dictionary above and create a button for each key with an ID to reference later and an onClick function that will fire when that key is pressed. Then I immediately call the Initialize function to populate the HTML. And at this point, the app looks something like this, and it doesn't do anything. For the KeyClick function, I check if the key is the Backspace key and call the Backspace function. If it is the Enter key, call the Enter function. Otherwise, if it is a letter, check to see if the current guess is not already at its max letters and that there are still guesses left. If true, push the letter to the current guess array and then update the current guess. The UpdateCurrentGuess function loops and gets all the grid locations for the current guess and updates their content to match the current guess letters in our array. So this just syncs the HTML with what we are populating in our JavaScript. The Backspace function simply pops or removes the last letter from the current guess array if the length is greater than 0. Then again, calls the UpdateCurrentGuess function to sync the display. Now in the app, we can add and delete letters from our current guess. If you are enjoying the video so far, hit that like button. In the Enter function, there is an initial condition that checks if the current guess isn't complete or if all guesses have been used and will return if either are true. I left it to do here to validate the word against the dictionary since it currently doesn't do that. Then I loop through each letter in the current guess and check if the secret word has that letter at that index and set the result to correct. Else I check the secret word includes that letter and set the result to found. Otherwise, that letter is not in the word and I set the result to wrong. I then check if the keyboard letter in our dictionary is already correct. Otherwise, I set the keyboard's letters state to match the result. Since if a keyboard letter was already correct, we don't want it to change. Then I call UpdateCurrentGuess again, but this time I pass true to the function. When the UpdateCurrentGuess function has the guess parameter set to true, it will also add the result to the class list for that letter, and then at the end, it will call the UpdateKeyboard function. The UpdateKeyboard function is similar to the UpdateCurrentGuess function. It loops through all the keys in the keyboard dictionary, gets the div by the ID, and then adds the value to the class list to update the display. Then going back to the end of the Enter function, I push the current guess to the array of guesses and set the current guess back to being empty. Over in the style.css file, if I add the classes for correct, found, and wrong, and make the guesses display inline instead of vertical, the application is now fully functional and looks like this. Now the only thing left to do is make everything line up in the center, change the font, make the guesses a fixed size with a border, and some other small changes seen here. And there we go, the Wordle clone is complete. Sort of. It is missing word validation like I mentioned. You can't share your results. There are no user messages if you try to submit an incomplete guess or if you win. There are a few ways to optimize the code, and the submissions and guess checks should ideally be done on a server to keep the secret word secure. But I think this is a great start and something that can definitely be improved upon. Again, you can download the source code below and play around with it yourself, change the secret word and run your own Wordle with your friends and family. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up, and if you're interested in what is coming next, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.